Hey everybody! Today we're going to try out my new coring system. This will be the first time that I've used it. I've got the other half of the Big Green Monster. This is the walnut blank that my friend Jason gave me. The first one I turned green, and this one is going to be the first try with my coring system. I got the Woodcut Bowlsaver system, and I am going to get this thing rounded over on the outside, put a mortise on it, and get ready to core it. The blank isn't terribly unbalanced, but I'm keeping the speed really low when I'm starting here. It's only at about somewhere between 200 and 220. It's a pretty slow go. I think it took me about an hour to get the blank ready to core. You might have noticed that when I had it laying on the lathe before I mounted it on the wormwood screw that it wasn't very flat. I didn't do a very good job chainsawing it. I think I had to meet in the middle. So I used a Forstner bit to flatten out the area where the jaws of the chuck are going to sit so that the wormwood screw will hold it nice and tight. I'm not sure if this is too big a blank to use with the wormwood screw, but I'm only going to have the tailstock away just long enough to put the mortise in, so I'm hoping it's going to be all right. I didn't want to use a face plate because the third bowl that I'm going to get out of this is going to be pretty small, and I was afraid that the length of the screws was going to go through the bowl, so we're going to try with the wormwood screw and see what happens. So I went ahead and finished rounding it off, and now I'm marking the location for the mortise. Just kind of taking the material out with a bowl gouge, and then I'm going to flatten it out with a square carbide cutter. I'll get the angle close with my detail carbide and then use the Nova dovetail chisel to make the final angle for the mortise. One of my subscribers sent me this tool. He ordered it from a company in Canada. I'll put their information down in the description box. I have found this tool to be a little bit grabby. It's definitely more grabby in resin than it is in the wood, but I made sure that all I really was doing with it is finalizing the angle. I'm not trying to take out a lot of meat with it. I feel a lot more comfortable using mortises knowing that the angle that I'm putting in there is exactly the one that's going to match the jaws. So thank you very much for sending me that tool. I really appreciate it. I'm not super concerned with getting this face totally flat. I'm just trying to get it close. And I started out with my bowl gouge, and then I went to the round nose scraper. I had a couple of cracks, so I drizzled some thin CA glue in them. Now, I have to admit that I had my friend Jason on a video chat helping me set this up for the first time. He's got the same Bowlsaver and the same lathe. So the positioning for this first core is already mainly set. When I go to core the second one, I'll show you guys me trying to work out how to get it in the right spot. It comes with these templates for the large blade and the small blade. I just find them a little cumbersome. They have a laser guide set up that I'm thinking long and hard about getting. I've got the lathe speed set at around 400 and I'm just going nice and easy. The cutter is actually making quick work of this walnut. It's still wet, but it's been cut for maybe 6 months or so. So it's not, slinging water wet. Oops. I did that a couple of times. Rotated the plate back just a little bit too far and touched the other edge with the black end of that plate. This did a really good job of ejecting the shavings and the chips out until I got kind of around going straight into the end grade, and then I had to start pulling the cutter out much more frequently and cleaning out the slot and the area on the plate around the blade. This has storage for both blades at the same time, but when I loaded the large blade in, I didn't put the small blade quite far enough through the other side, so I needed to move it and give myself more clearance to be able to fully seat the large blade. So far, the hardest part about using the Bowlsaver has been getting my tailstock to let go of the Morse taper that holds it in and stabilizes it while you're cutting. The thickness seems pretty consistent, so all I'm going to do is just clean up the inside and flatten the rim out and knock off the sharp edges before I put the anchor seal on it and put it in the kiln. And look, there's already something in the bottom. What is that? A sad rabbit? A sad bass? I don't know. What do you guys think? I buried this one in the shavings while I finished coring out the other two, and then I'll coat them in anchor seal and put them in the kiln. So this is the medium bowl, and this one I'm going to put a tenon on. I don't know why. I just did. The only skew that I have right now that's the right angle for the tenon on the Nova Jaws is an oval skew, and that's a little bit tricky to keep that flat. I think that I'm going to take one of my Benjamin's Best bowl scrapers that I bought a long time ago and turn that into a dedicated tenon cutter. Get there from here? I don't know. I believe how the templates are supposed to work is that you line the inside of the leg on the square end up with the bottom of the bowl that you're coring. And then the angled part on the other end is going to line up with the center of the pivot bolt. And I'm realizing that I'm going to have to use the smaller blade for this size bowl. Fortunately, both of the blades are right there on the Bowlsaver, and swapping them around is just loosening a couple of hex bolts and then retightening them. For me, the tricky thing about the template is not necessarily how they work. It's not being able to maneuver the banjo while I'm holding the template. I need both hands to move the banjo and align the edge of the cutter up with the inside of the bowl that I'm coring out, and then also maneuver it into position so that the center bolt is going to be lined up with the angled part of the template. And I have to just move it and check it and move it and check it. The laser guide is mounted on a rod that goes down inside a hole in a new mounting bolt that is supplied. So it holds itself, and then you can maneuver the Bowlsaver and then just swing that light back and forth. And that seems a lot less cumbersome to me. It can be a little tricky to get this lined up because you have to align the center bolt to cut the right depth, but then you also have to align the actual cutter blade to cut the right arc. So it's a little bit of shimmy this way and shimmy that way, and eventually you get it, but I really think that being able to just look at the arc of a laser would be a lot easier than trying to eyeball the template over the top. That looks pretty close. I think. Alright, I'm gonna give it a shot like this because. I really like the design of this system. I like that it has Morse taper that gets locked into your tailstock. It really makes it feel very stable and secure. It's definitely the easiest to use of the three kind of main players in the coring system world. The McNaughton system is definitely more versatile because I think that you can sort of hand guide it, but for me, that's too much potential for disaster. I looked pretty hard at all three of them before I decided on this one. Robo Hippie has a really good video on the McNaughton system if you're interested in that, and there are a bunch of people that use the one-way system, and there were lots of videos out there on that one. This one just seemed the easiest to operate and the most straightforward for me. There's a knot in the middle of this blank, and I believe that's what's causing all of the vibration and kind of squealy, chattery racket. Once you're getting close to the center, you kind of start listening for a change in the sound of the blade, and then start taking it really easy and sneaking up on it. I did the same thing with the baby bowl. I turned a tenon on it, and then obviously it didn't get cored. I just rough turned it, and then they all got anchor sealed and put in the kiln. And looky there, I got 3 bowls instead of 1 big one and a whole bunch of shavings on the floor. The bowl on the chuck is obviously not part of this core. That's one of the birch bowls that I was finished turning, and I didn't want to take it off of that chuck yet. My next coring project is going to be an oak burl, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for watching. Y'all be safe out there. Why is he always calling me meat? I'm the guy driving a Porsche.